most people don't realize that they're like a Wi-Fi modem sending signals all day long. And if everyone became really aware and very sovereign and empowered in becoming determined about what vibration they want to signal to the ether to have influence on the field around them, then we could shift the planet in 28 days.
Yeah. See, I 100% agree with you on that. And we're live. Excellent, guys. Welcome to Unplugged Podcast, episode number 47. Today's guest is Tom Cronin, former finance executive turned global meditation leader. After 26 years as one of Australia's top bond and swap brokers, a personal crisis led Tom to discover meditation and change everything. He's the founder of the Stillness Project, a movement aiming to get 1 billion people to sit in stillness daily. Tom now works with companies like Amazon, BCG, Oracle, Harvard, and Qantas to bring calm into chaos through leadership, coaching, and mindfulness trainings. He's also the author of 6 books and the producer of the acclaimed documentary, The Portal. Tom, there's a lot to get through today, and it's good to finally be here talking to you. Welcome to the podcast.
Thanks for inviting me along. I'm looking forward to this conversation today.
You're welcome. So we're down Connor today, guys. Connor is, most of you know, has flown to Vietnam at the last minute. He would have loved to be here. But Tom, you made this radical shift in your life, and it was a few years ago, I think, maybe 4 or 5 years ago. How long ago was it now when you made that radical shift from high stakes finance into your new life of teaching and speaking about meditation?
Yeah, it seems like just 4 or 5 years ago. It's actually 12 years ago now. And yeah, I'd been in finance for 26 years, but over that time, I really felt so much pull towards bringing meditation into the world, into the masses and into the corporates. And so I decided that the time had come for me to actually leave. And so I decided to make that big leap and jump into entrepreneurship and running my own business. And what a ride that's been, huh?
Well, it looks like it. I mean, I've dived deep into your work, and I really think that it's such a timely thing now. You said you've been working on it for the last 12 years, but I think in that time, society's kind of drifted away from even any type of connection really with the physical world. It feels like a lot of our lives are driven through these devices that we have in our hands, the computers that we stare at for hours each day. And it feels like just there's an ambient noise in the air of, I guess, information passing by our bodies. And I think it does do a lot to disconnect us from the physical world, but also the spiritual world. And I'd like to understand your take on that, because obviously when that radical shift happened for you, there was a crisis that happened for you, but then you discovered all these other things about stillness and meditation and how it can help us, I guess, heal and help us be more connected. What was that experience like? And were you aware of it before, or was it sort of that pinnacle acute moment that unfolded that helped you to understand these more subtle realms?
Yeah, just to give the audience a bit of context and background, many years ago, before I left finance, when I was in finance, I started when I was 19 years old. And this was a very Wolf of Wall Street experience. It was very similar to Wolf of Wall Street, if anyone's seen the film. In fact, John Belfort, he started his career as the Wolf of Wall Street in 1987. It was the same year that I started my career. He was 22 and I was 19. And it was fast, it was furious. There was obviously lots of drugs, drinking, partying. And I guess it's the same degree of distraction to what's happening now, in that we've got distraction in phones. For me back then, it was distraction in drinking, partying, making money, the markets. And I think any time where we're getting immense levels of distraction from what we're actually here to discover and be, we will get a butt kick and get reminders from the universe to stop being so distracted. And the universe usually gives us discomfort, pain, turmoil, chaos. And that's what I started to experience in the form of a lot of panic attacks, anxiety, depression. So this got to such an extreme level that eventually, after ignoring it for so long, the universe is not going to give up on you. It will keep kicking your butt until you get the message. eventually I had a full-blown nervous breakdown at the age of 29. And that was where I was just a crumbling wreck. I was seeing doctors, psychiatrists, put on medication, suicide ideation, couldn't go to work, having mental health leave. But it was in that really bleak, dark time of really questioning whether I wanted to continue on with life. The universe divinely organized for me to come across Transcendental meditation. And that was a complete game changer for me. It really turned my life around. And what blew me away about this, and what has inspired me to be so passionate about bringing this to the world, is the simplicity of how much my life improved as a result of simply closing my eyes and going inward rather than outward. Like that simple phenomenon of withdrawing from the world of sense, withdrawing from the world of distraction and form and phenomenon and information overload, and to just recalibrate, reset, and move my attention inward rather than outward. And that really was a game changer. And by just simply 20 minutes morning and 20 minutes afternoon, or even if you want to do 20 minutes a day, that simple allocation of time to something like that is an absolute game changer in your life.
What did you start to notice? Because you mentioned transcendental meditation. You mentioned that subtle shift of going from the outside world to the inner world. What was it that it started to shift? What did you notice at first? Because I think for a lot of people, I guess, first of all, you could define what transcendental meditation is and how it's different from other meditations. But also with the part of going inwards, I think a lot of people, when they start to do that process, because they have been so distracted about the outside world, they're even distracted when they're going inwards. So can you tell us the subtle changes or the subtle little bits that you started to realize, and also the definition of transcendental meditation?
Yeah, I guess the definition is in the word itself, to transcend. It's also called Vedic meditation. So technically I teach Vedic meditation and use Vedic meditation, which is the same as TM. They're just slightly different terminologies. But the process of transcending means to go beyond. To transcend means go beyond. So you're going beyond thoughts, going beyond your emotional body, and going beyond your physical body. And where do you go when you go beyond those three? You go into what we call transcendence, which is a realm of unbounded, infinite consciousness. It's a beautiful, spacious, quiet void of really ultimately deep peace. And two things really happen when we start to go into that. So firstly, coming back to why a lot of people struggle with meditation is because exactly that. We're just in that constant lure of the outer world. It's very charming, it's very pleasurable, it's very enticing for the mind. And so to just close the eyes and say, hey, mind, don't go thinking about things. The mind just simply doesn't know how to not think about things. So what we need to do is we need to lure it into something that's much more charming and much more pleasurable than the thinking. And so that's where the mantra comes in. Each student gets their own personalized mantra based upon when they were born. And that mantra plays an integral role in inspiring and enticing the mind deeper and quieter inward rather than externally. So this is the nature of these mantras that are cognized thousands and thousands of years ago. So we use these ancient primordial vibrations to simply quieten the mind down. But what I started to notice is really quite profound. The first thing that all of my students and myself notice is that by having no thoughts or less thoughts in the head, which result in physiological, emotional, and nervous system activations, every single thought, when we reduce that movement in the mind, we start to reduce the movement in the body, the nervous system, and the physical body. So what we tend to find is the body very quickly, literally within minutes, will switch from sympathetic nervous system into the parasympathetic nervous system. So that sounds technical, but what we're doing is we're going from stress to peace. Think of S for sympathetic, P for peace, parasympathetic. And when the body goes from stress mode to peace mode, we see this incredible cohesiveness and orderliness start to recalibrate within the body. It has an incredible natural ability to reorganize and optimize itself. And if you only take the analogy of a broken leg and we put a cast around the leg, now the cast has got nothing to do with fixing the leg. All the cast is doing is creating stillness.
Right.
The leg itself knows what to do. It knows how to fix that leg. It knows how to repair the damage. But we need stillness to let the body get into that state of reactivating the repair mode. And so all of my anomalies, the anxiety, the panic attacks, the agoraphobia, the insomnia, the suicide ideation, all of that simply went away as my body went out of the cortisol, adrenaline induced sympathetic nervous system state and into the oxytocin, melatonin, serotonin peace response state. And that gave the body the opportunity to do what it does well, and that's repair.
That's really powerful. And I think, with the parasympathetic nervous system state, learning how to regulate your nervous system is incredible superpower at the moment. You've talked about stillness being your superpower. How does stillness actually help someone thrive in business and in leadership?
I think one of the two great quotes to refer to, one is Ray Dalio, the world's largest hedge fund manager. He's actually retired now, but he was managing $180 billion worth of assets in Bridgewater Associates, probably one of the best hedge fund managers in the world. And he tweeted that the key ingredient to his success was his daily meditation. He does transcendental meditation or Vedic meditation. And Oprah Winfrey, who also does this technique of meditation, she posted that the constancy of stillness, it is only from that space can you create your best work and your best life.
Yeah.
And the reason being is that, and I would have to agree that my life has dramatically improved, not in all areas, obviously some areas you're still working on and it's a constant work in progress.
Mm-hmm.
But as a human, the capacity to improve, be better, have better brain functionality, better biology, better physiology, everything about your system gets optimized through that level of deep, phenomenal rest that we get in the meditation experience. So I think for business, two things really come to mind when it's like, how can meditation improve your business? And I've worked with some of the biggest companies in the world. Firstly, understanding the brain. When we go into stress response, what the body's doing is it's sensing a precarious, dangerous situation. And so the body's primary objective in this particular situation is to protect you from danger and make sure you stay alive. This will trump anything else that you're doing. So if by some particular reason the body thinks this is a dangerous situation and it's in stress response, what will happen is your brain will suddenly change the way it operates. And instead of operating from this frontal lobe, so we've got this really big frontal lobe forehead here, which is very different to all the other sapiens, the other Homo species. So there were 5 Homo species, and we were called the sapiens because sapien means the wise one. And that means that we developed this frontal lobe, which is this incredibly intuitive, conscious, good decision-making capability that we developed, and the other Homo species didn't have that. And that's why we superseded them. Now, we were just better thinkers, and that's our creativity, our adaptive capacity, our intuition, our wisdom, all was emerging from this frontal part of the brain. But when we get into that stress response, we operate from the very primal reptilian part of the brain, which is the very ancient part of the brain, and that's at the back there. So this contracts and shuts down, and this starts to get activated. And this operates on only 2 levels. Do we fight or do we flee? Very, very basic. And interestingly, when we drink a lot of alcohol, this shuts down as well, which is why we can't drive a car. That's why people really just go back into very primal type of thinking when they're very drunk, which is, do I fight or do I, another F word, which is normally be something amorous with someone. And so it's very basic functionality. So from a business perspective, we really want to get people out of fight flight so that we can really open up and optimize that frontal lobe of the brain. That's the first one. The second one, just to go into that very briefly, is that physiologically, our body, we want it to be optimized. We want to be rested. We want to be energized. We want to be sleeping well. We want to be fit. We want to be strong. And a lot of people in spiritual communities, New Age, still to this day, surprisingly, don't recognize the value and the importance of having an optimized physical apparatus. Right. And this physical apparatus, breath work, gym, saunas, but meditation more than anything, because of the profoundly deep levels of rest we get when we go into deep meditation. So those transcending meditations are really important for the optimization of the physical form.
Yeah. Yeah. So bringing that back into business and leadership, you mentioned the hedge fund manager. That just allows them to be able to be out of that stress response state, not be in a flight or fight state, be able to make good decisions, have a clarity of thought, and be responsive rather than reactive in everything that they're doing.
Absolutely. I think, the analogy I like to use is in the old days, you had those radios where you had to use the dial and you had to, trying to get the static out of the way and you just get a little bit of the music happening. And for a lot of us, we've got so much static in our brain that to get clear, what I call critical thinking, expansive mind, beyond these recurring patterns of thought forms that we get these grooves happening in the landscape of our mind where we get these repetitive thoughts over and over again every day. But when we meditate, most of my students say they get incredible creative epiphanies because their mind's going from the operating system that's inside the skull to accessing the field of mind, which is all around the skull. So we've got mind in the skull, which is codes and constructs and conditions. And then we've got mind outside the skull, which is the same as the phone. If you take the phone as an analogy, the phone has an operating system inside of it. But what we have also is not necessarily the best thing about the phone is what's in the phone. The best thing about the phone is what it can access that's outside the phone. And that is worldwide information flow wherever we are. And that's what we want to access when we meditate, is that field of information where all potential exists.
Yeah, I just finished reading a book by Rick Rubin, and that was all about being able to tap into that field of creativity to be able to, and he used it all the time with, he said he's not a musician, but when he worked with the musicians, this is the state. And I guess it's maybe similar to the state of stillness that you talk about, that he likes to get his musicians in so that they can access this creativity and be able to pluck something new from the field. You've talked about stillness in being able to get out of the stress responsive state, but you also, I guess, allude, and you have pointed to it directly a couple of times, but this field of information, this, I guess, godlike nature, this, infinite source of energy, with the transcendental meditation or the Vedic meditation that you talk about, it sounds like there's different levels of access that you get to this field. And I guess at the start, it feels like stillness, feels like your mind's quietening down. Then it starts to feel like you're starting to access something that's otherworldly rather than the physical world. How far does that go? And what are some of the things that can happen when you're doing this for prolonged periods or in a heightened state of focus?
Yeah, a couple, like you said, there's a couple layers to it. It's quite interesting as we're sort of transcending. We're going down through layers of mental activity. And the first layer of mental activity that we start in our meditations in, which is where everyone is today, right now, those that are listening, is in like a beta brainwave state, which is where we're just thinking. And we're just thinking and we're thinking and we're thinking. And interestingly, when we think about the thinking process, 85 to 95% of our thoughts these days aren't actually our thoughts. So while everyone is listening to this podcast right now, they're listening to me speaking. So they're not their thoughts, they're my thoughts. When they're going on their Instagram, they're someone else's thoughts. When they're listening to the radio, someone else's thoughts. Watching Netflix, someone else's thoughts. So we have crunched down the amount of time that we have available to us to have free, spacious thinking, what I call critical thinking. And even in that space where we're maybe on the toilet or at a traffic light, these are very rare glimpses. Even these days, most people are taking their phone to the toilet. We've really lost the capacity to have free creative space for contemplation and exploration with the mind. And so what happens with meditation is that we start transcending or liberating ourselves from the thinking mind. We call this vasanas. And we start getting into very creative impulses of thought as we get out of the thought mind and into the field of mind. And so in that sort of layer of thought, what we're starting to access is a field of creative potential. And we become like antennas. Our brain and mind becomes an antenna to pick up information in the field that's relevant for us. So it might be like, oh my goodness, I've got a really good idea for a children's book on meditation. I've got an idea for a film, or I've got a marketing idea, or I've got an idea I could put into my retreat. So it'll be kind of flavored to you and your realm and your life and your experiences. And then what can happen is that we can even transcend that layer. Now, when we go beyond that layer, where we're getting to now is what we call pure consciousness, otherwise known in Sanskrit as Turiya, which means the fourth state. So now at this point, there's no creativity, there's no thoughts, there's just conscious awareness itself, otherwise known as presence or being. And we've got our eyes closed, there's no thoughts, there's just this big spacious void of incredibly deep peace because there's no fluctuations of the mind. So what we want to do on a regular basis of meditating twice a day is eventually have our mind stabilized in that field of mind and operating from that place where, this is why Oprah says, the constancy of stillness, it is only from that space can you create your best work and your best life. And Ray Dalio will also attribute it to that consistency of daily meditation. That then what happens is that you're not only getting creative in your 20 minutes of meditation or 5 minutes of meditation, you have access to that field throughout the day. And so you're getting these impulses of creative intelligence that are not only giving you creative decisions and creative impulses to help you grow your business, like let's design an app or make a movie or write a book or come up with a business model, but also it gives you greater perception or perceptive capabilities to tune into the adaptation that's required to move through life with less stress, less chaos, less turmoil. So preempting the need for change before the change requirement comes is one of the big things that happens when we meditate.
It's almost like you're starting to live in alignment with that field or
That's right.
Your higher self, as we like to call it, or, that godlike nature that we can tap into. And that alignment helps us to, I guess, like you discovered, take you on the trajectory that you were meant to be on, away from the crisis, away from the turmoil, away from the anxiety and suicidal ideations towards, I guess, life and how you wanted to live it in a more aligned way that is more true to yourself.
Yeah, one thing I tend to find, I do a lot of coaching with people, and one thing I tend to find whenever there's turmoil, chaos in an individual, in a relationship, in a company, or in a civilization, it usually indicates a resistance to change. And there's a beautiful quote from my teacher: suffering is proportional to our resistance to change. And all suffering is a mechanism that I believe is designed by the universe to guide us to adapt and change. And even Einstein, I think it was, or Darwin said, the strongest of the species is the most adaptive. And so this is one of our superpowers, is being adaptable. But what happens is that without that adaptive capacity that we get through meditation, that intuition that helps us get into what I call natural law, like that natural flow and alignment you mentioned, is this what we get is a calcification and a resistance to change. And change for the ego, uncertainty, is a fearful place. And Tim Ferriss once said that we would rather be unhappy than face change. And the reason for that is, if you think of the competing preferences between fear and unhappiness, now fear is a stronger, more unpleasant sensation than unhappiness. We can be unhappy for long, long periods of time, but being fearful for long, long periods of time is really, really painful. So we would rather than be fearful, we'd rather be unhappy. And if that means staying the same, but still being unhappy, then putting fear above it, then we would just stay unhappy. And that's an easier option than being fearful.
So tell us now about the Stillness Project, because this is kind of your hallmark mission, it feels like. What is it about, and what are you hoping that will create a shift? Because I think you're speaking to some of the big changes that are happening globally at the moment, and it does feel like there's a lot of resistance, I must admit. How is the Stillness Project helping? What's its role? What's its mission? And what do you foresee for it in the future?
We see a lot of policy. We've just been through a couple of big elections, one in the US, one here in Australia. And everyone's sort of sprouting ideas and ideologies and concepts of what we should do in our world. But what we're seeing, unfortunately, is a very static level of consciousness. The way we see the world, the way we relate to ourselves, the idea of separation and my way is better than your way, my religion is better than your religion, my political persuasion is better than your political persuasion.
Very binary.
Very binary, very conflicting, very polarized, and very separated and segregated. And that's what's causing so much disconnect, so much pain, so much turmoil, so much conflict. And when we get deeper into this meditation experience, we start experiencing what we call a unity consciousness. And this is really ultimately starting to transcend the idea that you're an individualized, separate, segregated entity, but you're actually part of a collective field. Now, this is not a concept. This becomes experiential. So the wave realizes and wakes up to its fundamental reality that it's actually the ocean, and that all waves are the ocean, or that the cloud is actually not the sky. The cloud's in the sky, but the sky is really the ultimate reality that is its true nature. So when we start to become and access unity consciousness and non-duality, we start to realize that other isn't actually something separate from me that is a problem or something that is a threat to me. Other is actually an extension of me. And we start to change the way we run our businesses. And we see this happening where more conscious people run more conscious businesses.
Correct.
So my goal was to actually, rather than change business or change politics or change, policy in the world, let's just change the state of consciousness of individuals, because from there, people create what they are.
Shortcuts everything else.
It totally shortcuts everything else. We went to World Economic Forum to do a screening of our film in Davos, and I was sitting down with some senior leaders in the world, and they had all these policies. I'm like, yeah, but you're trying to implement policies when the consciousness of the people that you're implementing the policies for isn't changing. They're still fighting for their lives. They're still in separation. They still see other things as threats or sources of pleasure. So we have to get the state of consciousness changing on the planet. And that's what the Stillness Project was about.
And you've been doing this for 12 years. How long was that sort of the Stillness Project? Was that birthed straight away, or was it something that you've sort of started to build over time?
It was the starting point. The vision was to inspire 1 billion people to meditate daily. So that was the founding sort of tagline for the Stillness Project. And look, I'm less alpha male and attached to conquering and achieving that particular goal now. It's just like, if it happens, it happens. But I just do what I like doing.
They're the best visions, I think. I think the best visions is where you share the vision. You're not sure, there's no real fixed time frame. But that's what you're hoping to achieve. And that's when it kind of turns more into a legacy, I think.
Yeah, someone said and reached out to me, suggested I have a little Geiger counter or something on the top of my website so that we can count every time someone starts meditating. But I just thought, you know what, I like running retreats. I like teaching people to meditate. I'm good at it. So let's just do what I'm good at and do what I like doing. And whatever happens after that, we'll see.
Were the WEF open to this type of thinking? Was that well received over there? And was it, when you're in Davos and you're having these types of conversations to, I guess, the people that were effectively in charge of the world, really, were they willing to sit down and discuss this idea and how it could be implemented into the wider, world?
It's interesting for people to understand Davos. Firstly, Davos is a congregation of all of the world's primary leaders. So that's the banking leaders, the large corporation leaders, so your Facebook, your Walmarts, your Twitters and things like that, your Oracles and Googles, then your presidential and prime minister leaders, and they all come together in this particular very tight forum. And these are what we call the white labels. So they get a lapel and a badge that has it's a white badge. And so that means that they get into the inner sanctum. And then there's the blue badges, which are people that were invited or participating, and they're on the periphery. So there's an amazing periphery that is growing every year on the outer rim of the inner rim. And the outer rim is all these different hotspots and events and speaking events and workshops and amazing sort of stuff that's going on. So it's almost like a Burning Man in the snow on the outer rim of Davos. So the point of the outer rim is to bring as much consciousness to the event to hopefully vibrationally influence those leaders that are on the inner rim. And so it's really quite interesting and exciting when I was there to see the intentions of the conscious people that have come to kind of create a container to hold space and see if we can vibrationally uplift and support the decision makers that are pulling all the strings for the planet, which are the people that are on the inner rim. But I didn't obviously sit down with presidents of countries and things like that, but definitely had a lot of meetings with people on the outer rim who were very, very open to this, because that's the whole point of them going there. So if anyone's listening and they're feeling compelled to go to WF, it's something, don't dismiss it, because you're playing an integral role if you're a conscious leader and you want to go there and be part of the outer rim.
Yeah, because it does get a bit of a bad rap, but I wasn't even aware of this outer rim. Is that something that it's officially a part of the Davos meeting every year?
Yeah, it is. Yeah, you can register workshops, events. There's pods. I think what they're called. I think they're called pods or something. Nodes. And there's all these nodes that are established. And I got invited because of a friend of mine that works in the UN, and she was a white badge, but also involved in the blue outer rim as well. And so I think it might be by invitation only, but definitely people should be looking into it, because I think this is one of the great opportunities on an annual basis, one of the only opportunities where all the leaders of the world come together, and our ability to then consciously send positive vibrations to those people to help them make better decisions that are good for the planet.
Hi there, this is Connor and Callum from Kinect Coaching. Hope you are enjoying the Unplugged Podcast. Nothing lights us up more than seeing businesses thrive, especially in uncertain times. We have 32 combined years of doing nothing but mentoring and training businesses from around the globe in order to increase their revenue and thrive in uncertain times. So what we would like to do is share with you a little bit about what we've discovered over the last 32 years.
We've created this amazing business model called the Forever Business Model, and we want to give it to you for free. All you need to do is jump down into the description below. There's a link there called Steal Our Forever Business Model. Click on the link. There's a 9-minute video that you can watch where we unpack everything you need to know to implement it in your business right away. Is that intentional part of sending the good vibrations or raising the level of consciousness surrounding it? Is that like an covert kind of thing, or is that like an overt? You guys are actually saying this is our intention for being here. We want to hold space for these world leaders so that they can make better decisions and be more aligned with the populace and those sorts of things.
I think it's more overt now these days. And this is the interesting thing, if you think about the ability to influence, we call it the event horizon or sphere of influence. And, the sun has a sphere of influence to Pluto and half again. So the sun's mass itself has the ability vibrationally through energy, heat, gravitational pull, light, to send wavelengths of influence to Pluto and half again. The moon has a sphere of influence beyond its physical mass that vibrationally influences billions of tons of water every day. Yeah. So if you walk into a Metallica concert, there's 4 guys with a guitar and some drums at the front, but their ability to influence 10,000 people in a stadium and change their vibration. A million people, exactly, yeah.
It's incredible.
So that's so powerful, right? And we all have that. It's just most people don't realize that they're like a Wi-Fi modem sending signals all day long. And if everyone became really aware and very sovereign and empowered in becoming determined about what vibration they want to signal to the ether to have influence on the field around them, then we could shift the planet in 28 days.
Yeah. See, I 100% agree with you on that. And I think the troublesome side of it is that, even for me through COVID and a little bit afterwards, like we're so glued to our phone and getting updates on what's happening globally and what geopolitical conflicts are happening. And I think recently, like you said, with the major elections, both here and in the States, looking at what's happening geopolitically, right now, there's a lot going on in India and in Pakistan. And I think that that has an effect on us as well. It changes our frequency, changes our vibration. And, my wife and I make these conscious choices every now and again to get what we call get outside the noise. And it's, a way to go camping or go get a cabin somewhere. But the only prerequisite really is that there's no Wi-Fi or phone service. And I notice a shift in the way that I think, in the way that I feel, in the way that I approach things. And it is a much calmer and much more peaceful state. What is it? Is it this addiction to our devices, an addiction to like the news, an addiction to, what's happening here, having to know and having to, our conscious mind's so like, almost like fascinated and connected and addicted to these world events and people that we'll probably never meet in our lifetime. How do we get to a point where we can step away from that? Because I feel like, and this could just be me, but it is also some of the people I talk to, there is a need to keep up to date. There is a desire to know what's happening because you, like, I think you did in a post a couple of days ago about going sailing with your dad, and he had this beautiful thing that he used to say to you. It's like preempt what's going to happen next with the weather, right? And I feel like, again, these are the people I'm talking to. It's not, I don't want to speak on behalf of everybody, but this need to keep up to date with global affairs because you do want to preempt what's going to happen next. But I do feel like that's having a huge impact on, like you've spoken about, being disconnected and not a part of this field and disconnecting yourself from the field, and almost kind of bringing more of that or attracting more of that into the world, into reality, just by the angst and the tension that it builds within your body just by watching it. Can you talk to us about some of the traps and the shortfalls that people fall into there, and how they can, I don't know, is there a way to mitigate the two? Is there a way to be connected and also, know what's going on in the world and not be affected by it?
Yeah, absolutely. There is. It's fascinating. This morning I went to meditate, and I normally get up, don't turn my phone on until after I've meditated. And because then I just am going straight from sleep into this beautiful space without it getting cluttered and disturbed. But I thought I had to charge my Tesla. So to drive my Tesla, I need to turn my phone on because my phone is the key for the Tesla, if anyone didn't know that. And so then I had to turn my phone on. And while I was charging the Tesla, and I was going to go and meditate while I was charging, because I've got to drive down to the country today and I didn't have enough electricity. And I thought, I'll just check my Bitcoin. I'll just check if the Pope's been elected. I'll just check what's happening with India. And next thing I was going down a rabbit hole. I'm like, oh, whoa, what's happening here? And I was like 15 minutes in down a rabbit hole. And so coming back to your question, firstly, I love Joseph Conrad's quote from I think it was Heart of Darkness, the book about Kurtz. And he said, there's a fascination with the abomination, which is why we slow down when we get to car crashes. Now, the one thing that's really important for us to remember, we're not now more fascinated with the abomination. My mum and dad, and you probably remember your mum and dad, everyone read the newspaper in the morning.
100%.
My mum and dad, without fail, every morning when we were getting our breakfast as kids getting ready for school, the ABC radio was always on. And I still remember the jingle of the ABC News when it started.
Yes.
And everyone started with either the radio, which would be, AM or FM, usually AM for talkback, 2GB, 2UE, ABC. And then the newspaper would arrive, right? Now, the difference between the radio and the newspaper versus this little gadget here is that they were finite, which meant that if I left the kitchen, the radio didn't come with me. And it was plugged into the wall. And as soon as you're out of range of the radio, let's just say, you're off to work on the train or something, then you couldn't tune into the information. Now, you might have a newspaper, but then the newspaper had a finite capacity as well. You can only get through so many pages of the newspaper and then you're done, right? Whereas the phone, it's infinite. Now, this is the challenge, is that we now have 24/7 infinite supply of information. So this is not going to change. So what we have to learn, and obviously this is what I teach and coach now, is what's called fortifying your phone, creating a fortress around your phone for certain periods of time, so that phone, you use it as an advantage for you in your life rather than it uses you, because all those apps are trying to use you. They want to exploit your attention for many, many reasons, obviously commercial reasons, all of them commercial reasons. So every single app is trying to exploit your attention to get as much of it as possible. And it does a very good job of that. So what we have to do is we have to really fight against that natural inclination for two things: our fascination with abomination, and secondly, the craving of dopamine. And that's going to take a lot of resistance and a lot of work and a lot of effort. But by bringing that effort into it and having systems and strategies, and I do a lot of coaching around this with corporates on flow state coaching around how to get into these optimal states through strategy. We really need strategy.
Yeah, I've seen, I've personally used Opal for a while, which is an app that will just shut your whole phone down. There's a new one I've seen advertised on Facebook where I think it's called Brick. And it's actually like a touch thing that you put somewhere in your house where you have to actually tap off. Yeah. Are these the strategies you're talking about, or is it something different? And I guess I wanted to draw your attention back to one of the things I buried in the question before is, by focusing a lot on these things, you said, yourself, you're looking at what's happening with the Pope, the Pakistan, India, the Bitcoin thing. Are we kind of, we live in that world, right? So it's hard to fully detach ourselves from it all the time. Are we kind of attracting more of that in our life by the way that we respond to this information as well? Is it kind of fueling it?
I think it's good for us. I'm definitely a better coach by being aware of what's going on in the world. Yeah. I had one of my colleagues actually. She refused to look at the news. I don't want to know anything about this happening in the world. It's bad energy.
Yeah.
And I said I use it to fuel me, because I look at the news and I go, yes, I've got more work to do. And it allows me to be aware of things, to reference things, to be mindful of and compassionate and caring and not so egocentric. I think there's a sort of egocentricness about spirituality in some respects, where we just get in our little bubble and make our own bliss bubble happening. But, if you look at some of the great leaders in the world, the Gandhis, the Mother Teresas, the Mandelas, they're thrown into really challenging situations and circumstances. So this is not about running away from the world. This is about being fully aware, fully present, and bringing your essence into that world rather than excluding it from the world.
Right. Yeah, it's interesting that you said that, because I kind of have gotten to this point now that if something's bothering me about what's happening, and it was COVID that did this for me like really, really well, was if something about what I'm reading is bothering me, then there's some inner work that I need to do. There's something that I need to work through or get neutral on or resolve within me, because it's usually stemming from a fear or a uncertainty of some kind, where I don't know, or I don't have the answers. So it's the fear of the unknown, or fear of danger or something like that. And being able to neutralize that, being able to work through that, actually I feel like helps to evolve me as well. I'm not sure what your experience has been with that.
Yeah, look, there's definitely that. There's also, as well as that, the ability to notice what's bothering you, and then get proactive about how can I in some way contribute in a way that might help resolve that problem. Right. For instance, my business is what we call a game B business model, which means that my business is an extension of my consciousness, as all businesses are. And ideally, my consciousness is in a more unified conscious state than it used to be. It used to be very narcissistic and very self-centered and egocentric when I was a broker. These days, it's a little bit more concerned and caring for the collective and other. Yeah. And so my business, everything that we create in our business that people can interact with, should and will uplift and support and make the world a better place. So our retreats, our films, our books, our coaching programs, our meditation courses, our keynotes, everything is an opportunity for the world to be better off as a result of our products. That's step one. Step two, we're a for-profit, which means that me and my family benefit from me making the world a better place, because we make a financial exchange for that. And that allows us to actually have shelter and eat food, which is good because my kids like eating food. So do I. So that kind of works out well for us. So we're a for-profit, but because we're a for-profit, we can take a portion of our revenue that's not profits, but our revenue before it goes into profits, from every sale of every item of our products, and people can go to my website, tomcronin.com. They can go to pretty much every page, but just go to the homepage, and you'll see down at the bottom, we channel a portion of our revenue to particular areas all around the world through a charity called B1G1. It's actually an aggregator, B1G1, buy one, give one. And 100% of the funds goes to those locations. And you can see the SDG goals where the impacts that we've made in all those areas where our funds have gone. You can see a Google map where the money's left our bank account and gone to those particular locations, like Colombia, helping women from sex slavery. Malawi, we're growing tangerine trees. India, we're putting in water wells. Kenya, we're putting kids through high school. So there's a multitude of different areas around the world, in Australia and around the world, that we're contributing to as a result of our business. And so what you have as a result of that is not like, I'm going to curl up in a ball, the world's messed up, I can't deal with it. In every area of the touch points of my business, I want to make the world a better place. So the more my business grows, the more my business thrives, the more the world becomes a better place, which really incentivizes you to actually put a rocket ship under your business and blow it up in a big way, because then everything makes the world better as a result of that.
I love that. I really do love that. And I feel like the way that we teach people about business, the way we teach people about sales, is definitely about putting the human heartbeat to the center of those interactions. And I feel like that's making the world a better place as well. I love what you're doing with the where you're contributing as well, and seeing, getting a map of the world and seeing where those dollars are going is quite inspiring. I wanted to talk to you about the portal. It's a documentary that you created, and it showcases these global transformational stories. And it also touches on the human collective potential as well around the world. Can you tell us what inspired you to create that? I think I know because of what you've been talking about. But can you tell us what inspired you to do that, and take us on a bit of a journey of how that came about and the success that it's had as well?
Yeah, I guess with the Stillness Project, the vision to inspire 1 billion people to meditate daily, the big question is how.
How do we do
so
it?
that was the what, and the next thing was how. And so one of the methodologies we thought that could have a big global impact would be, and really it was inspired by The Secret, which became a film and book with omnipresence. You know, it was literally touched every country in the world, where someone in all of those countries will have come across The Secret in some way, shape or form.
Yeah, for sure.
And so we wanted to follow suit with that and make a film about meditation. And this was before Calm app and Headspace and things like that managed to get global recognition. And so I really wanted to put meditation on the map, and we thought we'd make a sort of a hit documentary. And of course, one thing I learned, being very naive about making films and not being a filmmaker myself, that it was much harder than I thought. It took a lot longer than I thought, and cost a hell of a lot more than I thought. So the premise of it was to showcase the power of meditation in helping us move through crisis, why there's crisis, how to deal with crisis, and how to move on to the next level from crisis. And that looks at individual crisis. And we've got 6 stories that all went through crisis that used meditation to heal and transform. And then we look at humanitarian or humanity's global impending crisis. I don't think we're actually quite there at that particular junction point of breakdown or breakthrough, but we're getting closer, with the doomsday clock only getting to 90 seconds to midnight just a few months ago. So we're sort of looking at, well, if humanity's thoughts and decisions and mind has created the crisis, then humanity's thoughts and minds and consciousness can free us from crisis. And so what do we need to do to prevent crisis and to move us to the next level? And so that's where the film sort of came about.
Yeah, I think it came out in 2019. Is that right?
Yeah, that's right.
That's such a perfect time for a film like this.
Yeah, that's right.
To come out just before, the onset of COVID and things like that. Where can people find that if they want to watch it and they want to, see your work, the portal, but also, where can they get involved more broadly with what you're doing, and what specifically could they do with you?
Yeah, a couple of things. They can watch the film on the website, Enter the Portal. So just entertheportal.com. It's also on Gaia at the moment. And
that's on Gaia,
yeah. And they can find it on my website at tomcronin.com. So most of what I do is on tomcronin.com, which is retreats, learning Vedic meditation. So I run classes and courses for people around the world. And we've got retreats with one coming up in Bali. And do some mentoring and keynote presentations and corporate trainings as well.
Awesome. The retreat in Bali, can you share a little bit more about the dates, times, what people can expect and how they can get involved? I'm familiar with the place that you're having it at because I stayed there back in 2015. It's absolutely like majestic. It's kind of this little tucked away, beautiful little resort that's up in the mountains, and it's just absolutely stunning. So could you share a little bit more about that?
Yeah, we like to take people out of their circumstances and situations and put them into a really deep immersion. So this location up in the mountains of Bali, very dense and beautiful, lush tropical forests. And we go through a particular sequence and process and a program that I've been running for 13 years with phenomenal results. We generally get 10 out of 10s as reviews for our retreats because of the incredible transformation that people go through. It's not just about relaxing. It's about breaking free of self-sabotage, limiting beliefs, old scar wounds and tissue from not just your life experience in this life, but also generational stuff that you've carried through. And we really go deep into ancestral clearing and clearing for this lifetime. It's pretty intense. It's not a walk in the park. I'm just not going to sugarcoat it. We have amazing food, an amazing spa center and all the luxuries, of course. It's stunning villas, but the real shift and the magic comes from the transformation that we put people through with the yoga, the breath work, and the meditation.
And the dates for that, I think, is around the 15th.
13th to the 18th of September. So it's 5 nights, 6 days, mid-September. Yeah, it's beautiful. We've got only just a few villas left. It's about half full now.
We'll keep the show in the show notes. We'll put the link for the portal, and we'll put the link for the retreat. It's been a long time coming, Tom. We've been wanting to talk to you for a very long time. Been fascinated by your work, and very inspiring stuff. Just the sheer kind of consistency that you've had over the last 12, 13 years in doing this. And like you said, it doesn't come without hard work. And I think, the reflection of your hard work is spreading really well throughout the world. And it's great to have more people like you doing this amazing work. So thank you for being here on the Unplugged podcast.
My pleasure, mate. It's been great to be here. I'm a Scorpio, so very stubborn. So I just keep doing what I'm doing.
I'm a Scorpio.
There you go.
I'm a Scorpio too.
Good man. Well, it's been great to be on here, and thanks for great questions. Thanks for listening, everyone. It's been great to have your attention today.
Thanks, Tom. Appreciate it.
Thank you very much for watching the Unplugged podcast with Callum and Connor from Connekt Coaching. Hope you loved this guest this week as much as we did. Cal?
What we wanted to remind you of is that if you wanted to steal our forever business model, which is perfect for all sorts of businesses around the world, to start to build extra revenue in your business right away, get instant access by clicking on the description and going into the link below, watching the 9-minute video where we unpack everything. See you next up.